Who are the candidates you'll see in statewide races in 2026? We continue bringing you the people running for governor in Florida. Today, Republican James Fishback joins us. Does the Main Street Bridge in Jacksonville deserve some special recognition? There's a local push to make that happen this coming year. And an answer from the city's chief health officer about accusations of potential Medicaid and Medicare fraud. All of that today on This Week in Jacksonville. Thanks for being with us today. James Fishback, we just introduced him in the start there. He runs an investment firm, also known in right-wing media, but recently announced that he's running for Florida governor. Mr. Fishback wants to be an alternative to the Republican frontrunner, that frontrunner, Congressman Byron Donalds, who has President Trump's endorsement. The governor's seat is open next year, and that's because Ron DeSantis can't run again, term limits. Mr. Fishback told reporters at the Capitol he wants to make Florida more affordable for everyone. And James Fishback is joining us today in studio. I appreciate accepting the invitation. I want to begin with comments that you made concerning Representative Donalds, but I also want to cover your background, major policy proposals, recent controversies, and what you do as governor. Let me start here. If elected as governor, you'd represent 23 million Floridians. Almost 4 million of them are black. So how can those black Floridians count on you to effectively represent them? Because when you launched and called your campaign opponent in the primary, probably, who is black, you called him a slave.
Well, Kent, I called him that because he's a slave to corporate donors and to foreign interest. If Byron Donalds wants me to stop calling him that, he should return the $30 million he took from corporate PACs all across this country. What I say to the 4 million black Floridians is what I say to every other Floridian in the state. I am in this race to fight for you. I'm in this race to make life more affordable for you, your kids, and your grandkids, whether it's property tax, property insurance, car insurance, college tuition, the ability to get a great paying job, raise a family, buy a home, and when it's all said and done, retire with dignity. I have a plan to make life a little bit easier and a lot more affordable for a state that my family has known now for 4 generations.
Before we move on from there, isn't language important though? Do you believe, I'll let you answer that, I won't put words in your mouth. Do you believe that the rhetoric risks inflaming tensions or racial undertones for a campaign where so many people are saying, let's get away from the division?
Well, if you want to get away from the division, to Congressman Donalds, with all due respect, he should give back the $30 million that does not belong to the people of Florida. It belongs to corporations, the same corporations that want to sell us out to property developers and inflame our state to become a concrete jungle. If we don't want division, it's very simple, Ken. Give back the money and stand up for Floridians, not for donors, not for property developers, and not for foreign interests.
Certainly want to hear some of your policy initiatives or the priorities you have. You said you'll stop replacing American workers with H-1B foreigners. So tell me about maybe some state-specific or state-level specific policies you'd pursue to make that happen, and how would they avoid maybe federal preemption?
Well, let me get really specific. I was at FSU a couple weeks ago and I met a young man, bright computer science student, did everything right. He sent out 117 resumes in a single week. Didn't hear back from one, didn't have an interview, nothing. That same company that he sent the majority of the resumes to is hiring H-1Bs right in our state from India and China, hiring them for entry-level positions like IT tech support and accounting. That's an insult that our kids can get great grades, great test scores, go on to college, take on the debt, take on the risk, and then enter a job market where there's not a single job available to them. Why? Because companies use H-1B and other foreign immigration scams to fire our workers or not even hire them in the first place and then turn to the foreign labor pool. As governor, if you elect me for this role, I'm going to be a champion for our workers. So what I'm going to do on day one, I'm going to end the H-1B scam. Here's how you do it at the state level, even though we all know it's a federal program. What you do is any company that has a state contract, they have to decide, do they want to keep their 50 H-1Bs on the payroll, or do they want to keep their $50 million a year state contract? They get 24 hours, there's no negotiating, and it's going to be that. And I guess what? I think most companies are going to choose to do the right thing, which is to rehire the people they fired, let go of the foreign workers, let them go back to their country and do the brave thing to make their country great. And let's put our workers first, because guess what, Ken? If you can't have a job, you don't have an income. If you don't have an income, you can't buy a home. If you can't buy a home, you can't get married. If you can't get married, you can't have kids. And if that's the case, what's the point? I'm going to fight for Florida so every child, whether they're here in Jacksonville, where I grew up in Broward, where I now live in Madison, or they're in Pensacola or Pahokee, it doesn't matter. I'm going to fight for them to get a great paying job, to buy a home, to raise a family, and when it's all said and done, to retire with dignity.
From a policy perspective, would you say you're more aligned with President Trump or Governor DeSantis, or is that all the same, or is it completely different for you?
I am aligned with a vision that puts Florida first. I proudly voted for the president. I proudly voted for the governor. But my vision for Florida builds on the successes of Governor DeSantis working hand in hand with President Trump. Here's what I've said. To Airbnb, to Blackstone, to BlackRock, to foreign nationals coming into our housing market, enough of that. That has to end. You got families right here in Duval County that cannot buy a home, that have saved up, that are ready to take that new step, to start that new chapter, to only have a private equity firm like Blackstone or a foreign speculator from Canada or China swoop up and take that house off the market. I got a crazy idea. American homes are for American families. And that is the kind of governor I'm going to be, to protect home ownership for my generation and everyone that comes afterward. Because if it's your kids or your grandkids or even you who is struggling to buy a home, I want to help you in that journey so you can start that next chapter of life.
One of the big topics coming up in the legislative session this year in Florida is about property taxes. And you propose abolishing property taxes on homesteaded homes. Counties, school districts, we know local municipalities rely on revenue from property tax. How do you balance that? How do you make sure that essential services are handled if property taxes are removed from the equation?
Well, we have to protect our schools. We have to protect our first responders, our folks in law enforcement and EMS and fire. We are forever indebted for their contributions here in Duval County and across the state. Here's how we do it. Well, we have to first be specific. We're only doing property tax relief in the home that you own and you live in full time. So if you've got a second or third property, you got commercial property, or you got someone who's got a house in Ponte Vedra or Amelia Island or the beautiful beaches here in Jacksonville, and you live outside of the state, that's not your full-time residence. There's no property tax relief for you. I'm glad that you're in our state. I'm glad that you're visiting, but we've got to deliver relief for those who have actually built and called Florida home. The second thing is we have a lot of crazy spending at the county level. We've seen that with the Chief Financial Officer, Blaise Ngolia, calling it out here in Duval County. I'm going to continue to focus on the fact that some of our counties are spending 40 to 50% more today than they were just 5 years ago, Ken. Just 5 years, they're spending 50% more. To the viewers at home, is your life 50% better? Are our schools 50% better? Are our roads and bridges and infrastructure 50% better? And if they know because they see it, they'll know that the answer is heck no, it isn't. So we got to do two things. We got to give targeted relief to families because in America, you own your home, you don't rent it from the government. Targeted relief through property tax abolishment. And then secondarily, rein in the waste and the abuse and the excess at the county level. The holograms of the mayor here of Jacksonville in the airport, that's an insult. We can do without that. But that is just the tip of the iceberg of the wasteful, excessive spending. And when you force county governments to actually deal with that head on by depriving them of this revenue, you actually deliver a system that is efficient and respects the taxpayer.
Is this a Republican versus Democrat issue? Because it doesn't seem like that has been the case in what we've seen from the state, even their DOGE efforts.
Not at all. And you've seen the state DOGE efforts call out Republican waste. I'll tell you right now, I am a reluctant Republican. I am a proud conservative. I'm a proud American.
Republican.
Well, I'm a reluctant Republican because it's Republicans like Byron Donalds who have voted for every single spending bill over the past 5 years that he's been in Congress, every single spending bill that has spent more of our money on things that we don't need, money that we don't have, for people, in many cases, it shouldn't even be in our country. And so I'm not a Republican who's going to spend, and tax. That's what Congressman Donalds has done. With all due respect to him, you're not allowed to go to Washington, D.C. and run up the debt by $5-6 trillion over the past 5 years and then come back here to Florida and tell us how to be fiscally austere and responsible. And so at the end of the day, what I want to do is I want to get back to basics. This idea that we can't have a system that works for families and seniors, we only have to go back 15, 20 years to look at how local governments spent then. Protect our schools, protect our first responders, but never, ever, ever take folks for granted and allow government to become a parasite via property taxes.
James Fishback, appreciate getting to meet you and introduce you to the audience today. I want to make sure that all of you know Congressman Donalds that we're talking about has the endorsement of President Trump. Campaign responded in a statement about Mr. Fishback running, saying anyone running against him is an anti-Trump rhino and will get crushed in the primary. So Mr. Fishback, the latest Republican to join the race for governor. Aside from Congressman Donalds, former Florida House Speaker Paul Renner, who is from Jacksonville, he's thrown his hat into the ring. Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins also considering a run for governor. And on the Democratic side, former Republican Congressman David Jolly, Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings, they've filed to run for the office. And you've heard from several of these candidates right here on our show. All right, well, stay with us. Is there a financial malpractice happening within a health program for the city of Jacksonville? City Council's Duval Doge Committee taking a look, and we're going to hear from the program's author. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
And Dr. Sunil Joshi is Jacksonville's Chief Health Officer. He's joining us in studio today. Our main focus is telemedicine, specifically a program called HealthLink Jax. Dr. Joshi, maybe explain this. I said a moment ago, you're the author of this.
Right.
Tell us what this is and how it connects with what the city strives to do in providing health care to the people of Jacksonville.
Well, thanks for having me on to begin with, Ken. So yeah, HealthLink Jax is a program that we came up with during the mayor's transition cycle, and we heard from people out in the community about what we can do to improve health outcomes. And one of the things that we are challenged with here is the uninsured population, right? We have about 110,000 people who are uninsured in Jacksonville, and the vast majority of them are coming from the underserved parts of the county where we have the worst health outcomes. And these folks tend to use the emergency room as their source of primary preventative care, which is really the worst place to get your primary care. It's also the most expensive place to get your primary care because the ER is there for emergencies, not to refill your blood pressure medicine. So we came up with a program where we can try to get these folks into a telehealth, a virtual healthcare system where if they felt like they needed to go to the emergency room, they would call this number, 904-925-CARE, and get a physician on the phone, get treated, and then get diverted into a primary preventative care network through our Duval Safety Net Coalition through JaxCare Connect. And this way we're keeping them out of the hospital and in primary preventative care to keep them healthy and improve health outcomes. That became the program HealthLink Jax that was approved through the City Council originally in 2023 and has been approved through budget cycles a couple times since then.
Yeah, so this is a topic that we're into now because the City Council's Duval Doge Committee has been looking at this, and there have been some accusations. Hey, Telescope Health, who I understand is contracted to provide these services, that there might be some financial shenanigans going on there. Tell me about this and what Telescope Health is to the program, and what you would say to some of these allegations about illegal conduct and misuse of taxpayer funds.
Yep, so first of all, the program's name, of course, is HealthLink Jax, and then the vendor who is Telescope Health, and we chose Telescope Health after we went through an RFP and a competitive bid process. We had three total entities bid on this project, and Telescope Health scored the highest and won the contract. And so Telescope Health is the vendor for HealthLink Jax. They're the ones that provide the telehealth services, and they've done an amazing job. And I think it's really important to note that they've had over 6,500 calls in the last year, have done over 2,000 physician visits and 2,000 nursing care visits during this time, and have been keeping people out of the emergency room. So when we hear about some of the allegations that have come out, including, I believe, the councilman talks about Medicare or Medicaid fraud, it's quite frustrating because these are people who don't have health insurance. And I will tell you, they have received over 6,500 calls, and I said have done 2,100 physician visits, and not one of those people, not a single one of them, had Medicare, Medicaid, or any private health insurance. So how can you commit fraud if you're not billing health insurance to begin with? And so these are people without health insurance who are getting services through HealthLink Jax and our provider Telescope Health. So really, there has not been a shred of evidence to support some of these misguided and misinformed allegations that are out there.
So you mentioned 6,500 or so have called the number.
Yep.
What does that equate to financially? How does it save the city money?
Right. So if an individual is going to go to the emergency room, okay, and they ended up being diverted out of the emergency room and into a primary preventative care network, if they don't have health insurance, that costs the system About $4,800. The average cost for an emergency room visit, anywhere from a stub toe all the way up to a major illness, is about $4,800. And if you and so when you go to one of these not-for-profit hospitals in Jacksonville, if the patient if they're not able to get paid for that, some way somehow the hospital has to recover it. Either the hospital writes it off and now charges health insurance companies higher fees, or in some cases like UF Health, that money then is provided by the taxpayer as it goes into the indigent care contract that we have with UF Health as well. And so all of that saves the taxpayer dollars if they're not going to the emergency room to begin with. And not only that, if that patient doesn't go to the ER for a minor illness, if you or I have to go to the ER for a major illness and we have health insurance, we're able to be seen a lot faster because there's less people in the emergency room to begin with. So every single citizen in Jacksonville benefits from a program that's keeping people out of the emergency room who don't need to be there, and in particular, if they can't afford to be there.
So let me get the numbers right. I'm doing a little math over here. You may be doing it at home as well. So you said about 6,500 people have called?
Yes.
And the average amount spent in that emergency room visit would have been?
About $4,800.
48. So I had a lower number at $3,800. So that math comes out to more than $31 million.
Yeah, so you got to keep in mind that not all of those 6,500 people would have gone to the emergency room. They might have been contemplating it. The data suggests what they have provided to us, about 60% of these folks would have gone to the emergency room.
So even if I cut that 30 million in half, that's still substantial savings. And that's only 6,500 people getting in contact with HealthLink Jax.
And in the first year of the program, and this program, as we continue to utilize the program, it will continue to grow, and you'll have more and more people call the number, and more people will learn about the program and be able to avoid the emergency room and the cost savings as well.
Dr. Joshi, I appreciate it. I appreciate kind of helping us understand more about that in your time today.
Thank you for giving us the time.
All right. Hey, stay with us. City Council's Matt Carlucci joining me next on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
Well, thanks for being with us today. Matt Carlucci knows Jacksonville, now serving his 5th term in City Council. He's known for saving the Laura Street Trio from the wrecking ball 2 decades ago. Also interested in historic recognition for the Main Street Bridge. So more on that topic in a moment. Councilman, I would like you just to tell us your hopes for the upcoming Duval Doge meeting concerning that HealthLink Jax program that we just spoke to Dr. Joshi about.
Well, I think that when Dr. Joshi and the HealthLink folks get through answering any whatever questions that the Doge Committee has, it puts to rest all questions that there might be, because they have done a magnificent job for the citizens of Jacksonville and for the taxpayers. And I think any of these accusations are totally baseless. And I'd like to see it put to rest so they could go ahead with their mission and move forward.
Yeah, this next meeting coming up this Tuesday, I understand. All right, so let's talk about this. Historic landmark being pushed for the Main Street Bridge and kind of on the national stage here. Councilman, tell us about this. We're showing some video of the Main Street Bridge. It is iconic for Jacksonville, right? What's the push here about the National Register of Historic Places?
Well, you know, we were talking in our Transportation Committee the other day, and all the different council members that were there were talking about how much they love the Main Street Bridge. And you know, really, it's the face of our skyline, and it complements our skyline. The symmetry of the 2 towers kind of frames our skyline downtown. It was a part of our Super Bowl logo. It's the Florida Georgia logo. If you just type in Jacksonville on Google and then go to images, you'll see the Main Street Bridge everywhere. So we have this love of the Main Street Bridge, except when maybe it holds us up in traffic.
Right,
you know?
Exactly.
So I started researching and thinking about the history of it, going back to 1941 when the construction was completed. And then I found out that these kind of vertical lift bridges are becoming a rarity in the country today. There's only 2 working vertical lift bridges in Florida, and the Main Street Bridge is the largest one. And I looked at a lot of these different bridges, but ours is by far the most beautiful. The symmetry of it, and the towers that, you know, they just look like Jacksonville. And so I found out that it was approved to be on the National Historic Registry about 12 years ago. So I thought,
what's the holdup? Yeah,
what's the holdup? So I pulled together our historic planners, our general counsel, and some other folks with the city, and we decided to start the process. And we're starting that with the resolution urging the historic planners and the DOT and the Public Works Department to begin that process of making this happen. Yeah. And so I'm anxious for it to happen and be placed on the registry. And what I envision when it's done is it'll make our love affair with the bridge more complete. And I want to see one of those historical markers on the north bank and one on the south bank.
Each side of the St. Johns River.
Yes.
It's interesting, you know, we talk about 7 major bridges in the Jacksonville area. All of them unique, all of them different.
Yes, they are.
But this is the one that stands out, as you know. And the Main Street Bridge, we know, has also drawn $100 million in state investment. That includes a repainting project coming up in 2028. And so I know you and the team have said it'd be great if it gets the props from the feds before the paint dries here. Thank you for explaining this to us. I know it's something we'll follow up with you on.
Okay.
City Council can't do it alone. I know there's some other people who have to get involved here, so we'll keep taking notes of that.
Okay.
Matt
Super.
Carlucci, thanks so much for the time today.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, and thank you for being with us. You know, we're working to bring Byron Donalds onto our program, maybe as soon as next week. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and the CW17, and then online at News4JAX.com. Don't forget, and so many of you already are watching, by streaming on News4JAX Plus. And don't forget to check out This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition, our podcast episode this week. We're looking at global innovation efforts landing in Jacksonville with Jax Hub. You can find new episodes every Thursday at 9 a.m. You'll find it right now on News4JAX Plus under the channel This Week in Jacksonville. You'll also find This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition available wherever you find your podcasts. And when you do that, you'll find it on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for being with us today.
See why every day more people are choosing News4JAX, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.